So so my talk today is about something called AutoML, or as of as the my more dramatic title says, end-to-end machine learning for, or end-to-end AutoML for humanless AI, right? And initially, to understand the underlying concept, I think it's necessary to discuss like um, what is sort of what exactly do I mean by AI, right? And to keep the conversation narrow and not to diverge into all the different possible implementations of AI. Like, I think a good example is neural networks. Neural networks have been the leading sort of AI model for the last, I don't know, I'm guessing about 10 plus years. Maybe a bit less than 10 years. I think they started picking up at about 2013, 2015, and that's when they started becoming used in a lot of things, used to identify speech, used to identify images, used for recommendation systems, used for a lot of things. So, for example, when you talk to your iPhone, or when you talk to your Google Assistant, or God forbid if you have an Amazon Alexa at your home spying on you, then when you actually talk to these devices, there's usually a neural network either on a cloud, and a cloud is basically a server, right? So you either have your data is either being processed on the device or processed on like somebody's server. And neural networks have different components. So these components, for the more technically inclined, can be split into like layers, activation functions, loss functions, and optimizer. But basically, what this stuff means is that basically layers and activation functions are like the body of the neural network itself. Loss function is a measure that shows us how good or bad the neural network is in terms of predicting the right result. So if I have a neural network that I on my phone, and I want to say, "Hey phone," and it identifies that as me not saying anything, or as me saying, I would like to play music or whatever, then that's a bad neural network. So the loss function tells us that. And then there's an optimizer, which works on reducing this loss function, right? So all of these are different components that are usually designed by human researchers. And recently, people have been saying, well, AI has been doing pretty good results and superhuman results in some cases, including image classification. I think that's one of the very early cases where AI achieved superhuman results. So people came up with a way of, or people here, meaning AI researchers, came up with a way of phrasing that problem as a search problem, right? So instead of having human researchers work on producing an actual model, the question now is, what happens if we either use biologically inspired approaches that simulate evolution on a computer to sort of evolve better and better AI models or neural networks. And what happens if we have neural networks look at themselves? So if neural networks are pretty good, they can play Go and beat world champions. Why not have a neural network self-inspect and be like, hey, maybe I can improve myself in this way, or maybe I can improve myself in that way, right? Um, so this series of sort of techniques is usually called AutoML, which basically refers to machine learning, or like machine learning. Let's use the word AI, even though it's not the most specific, but it's sort of generating AI models without human intervention. Um, so I think a good thing that to discuss in this area right here is and how the process of training a machine learning model happens. Right, you have data, which can be synthetically generated, but usually data is collected by humans through like lengthy data collection processes, and then humans pick an existing AI model to use, and then they pick an existing optimizer that improves this AI model on the data. What AutoML is proposing is a bunch of different techniques to basically make all these processes automated, either by, as we've stated, emulating biological evolution in a computer, or through other mathematical techniques. Yeah. In case somebody is watching this and is interested in collaboration as well. I'm working on extending one of these AutoML approaches to make it less and less dependent on humans so that we can have Skynet faster. So if you also want to bring Skynet, please let's talk. Um, I don't know, like I think that was less than 10 minutes, but I could go into more detail, but I fear details are like a bit mathematical and people who are not familiar with computer science might be uh, s- slightly bored. So let me uh, let me open the space for questions if anybody has questions.